Hey guys, so I have something a little bit different for a kind of lifestyle beauty channel. Probably not the most anticipated video I'll ever do, but maybe the most important one I'll ever make. So this is my mental health story. So to start off, I'm just going to explain what my issue is. I was diagnosed with cyclothymia, which is like a lesser version of bipolar, which can very easily transition into bipolar if you don't seek any treatment. For me, at least, it was always very physical symptoms. They definitely started as mental, but they manifested themselves in physical ways. So not sleeping, losing a lot of weight, kind of feeling so anxious that I don't think I was even really breathing properly. I would have like numbness and tingling and lightheadedness. And I was just like very low, dark, heavy mood. I did definitely have an element of mania with it, but I think I very quickly learned to utilize that in my favor. When you spend so long being so low, not being able to like do or really sometimes even feel anything, as soon as you feel that high kick in, you make the most of it. I don't think I ever really engaged in any super risky behavior. I think I probably drank too much at times, but my highs were very much like, this is my only chance to get things done that I have to do, so I'm gonna probably not sleep and be super productive. So with that, I also have a lot of anxiety. I think I have a definite element of social anxiety, as well as just general panic attacks and stuff like that. But my essentially my issues were unpredictable cycling of my moods, the physical issues like the weight loss, sleep issues, stuff like that, and the anxiety. Looking back to when it probably started, my mum now says that, like, you know, hindsight is 20/20, and if she looks back at me compared to maybe my sisters being very young, I definitely did have some differences in that if I hadn't slept for some reason, it was like I just couldn't function, and it was like almost an immediate mini depression, I guess. And things like that pointed to it when you look back on it. But I think it wasn't until I was probably in high school that we started to think that maybe something was wrong or could be helped. I would say in like juniors, primary school, what do you call it here? Middle school, was when I first noticed that something was different. I went through a period of time where I could rarely sleep, and it would really stress me out, and I would like just go and sit on the landing in my house and just not know what to do because I couldn't sleep. Obviously, if at any time I told my parents that I couldn't sleep, they would, you know, do their best to kind of remedy things, but I just sometimes didn't even ask for help. So that was when I think, looking back, I realized that something was different, and that was because of sleep disturbance and kind of anxiety about that, and then that, you know, further making it impossible to sleep. Then when I got to high school, I went to a terrible high school. My class was so awful. They would like physically fight teachers. They would like spit in their coffee, be like pushing them, cursing at them. There was like girl on girl fights. It was such a bad year that 6 years later, when my younger sister was at the school, we were still known as the worst class. High school came with a lot of anxiety for me, a lot of frustration, because I was like, why am I here? I'm not learning anything. I'm just like sitting here waiting for the fights to stop. So it was definitely a very frustrating, anxious time. I don't think there's any way anyone could have said that they had a great time in that class. And pretty much if you weren't one of the like smartest students, you didn't get any help. So me like falling in the middle somewhere was just kind of like, I guess I'll just wait this class out like I do the rest of them. So anyway, horrible school experience. I don't think that helped at all, but I think I put a lot of my depression and moods down to that because it was just horrible. There would be times where I'd be so exhausted that I would go home after school, I would fall asleep, sleep through dinner, sleep all the way through the night, wake up the following afternoon once I slept for 22 hours. I wasn't even sick, I was just tired. Sleep continued to be an issue, anxiety then became an issue, and eventually just a very low, heavy mood was the main issue. I didn't want to do anything, I skipped school, I dropped out of school twice, and yeah, that is probably when it was more obvious to everyone that I was having struggles. So I think probably when I was 16 was maybe one of the first times my mum took me to the doctor to be like, something doesn't seem right. The first thing they will always do, well, in my experience, is they will suggest that you get like blood tests done to check for any imbalances in kind of like nutrients, vitamins, stuff like that. So I had that done. I was also having a lot of like, what I now see was anxiety, and maybe like the precursor to panic attacks was like lightheadedness, tingling, and just kind of feeling like I was going to pass out basically. The doctors put it down to me having really low blood pressure, which I still do, and kind of were like, make sure you have a snack, or, you know, sit down if you feel like you're going to pass out. It just wasn't very helpful, but I'm guessing it's not super common for, well, maybe it is now. I think it probably is more common now for 16-year-olds to be having panic attacks than it was at that point, when they were just like, she's probably just got low blood pressure. So anyway, that was the first time that I went to the doctor about anything. I struggled with it for another 2 years, and I think then when I hit 18 was the time that my mum took me to the doctor, and I think I probably cried for the whole appointment, because it was just such a weird feeling to be asking a stranger for help on this thing that you feel like you've struggled with for so long. Even though my mum was there and she did a lot of the talking for me and kind of, you know, instigated the whole thing, it's definitely a very like emotionally charged experience, especially when you're young and you feel like you were just destined for a life of that. So at that point, the doctor had said, you know, you are really struggling, you should try and take this medication, which I don't remember the brand name, but it was an Ssri, which is like your typical antidepressant. So I took that for a while. I remember like times when I would be at work and I felt so blank that people would be talking to my face, and a second after I would have no idea what they had just said. I was definitely just like going through the motions, like I was on autopilot. Don't get me wrong, SSRIs 100% do have their purpose and they are very helpful to a lot of people in a lot of situations, but for me that was just, other than it giving me a little respite from being so like deeply emotionally charged and depressed, it wasn't what I needed at that time. So I think I maybe went through another different drug, which I just probably didn't give enough time, honestly, but I just didn't feel like it was helping. I just didn't feel right still. I never felt okay, and I think okay is like a very underrated feeling. So it was around that time that I met Adam. I had never kept from him that I was having struggles. I think if you had spent any amount of time with me, it would have been very clear that I was struggling. I definitely lost a lot of weight in that time, and although I would never say that I've had an eating disorder or weight issues, I think it was like related to the depression and the anxiety, and I felt like I did not want to eat. Like the thought of eating made me anxious. Sometimes I would think like I don't want to eat that food because I might like choke on it, or I don't want to eat that food because the texture freaks me out and I'm gonna have a panic attack. So there definitely were some food issues, but I wouldn't say it was an eating disorder. Anyway, I was very skinny. It was very obvious I was struggling. I was like an emotional wreck, and Adam was always very supportive. He would like make sure I actually ate, like find things that I could stomach eating. We probably were together for about a year or a year and a half, and I don't think that I was medicated at that time at all. Then we decided we were going to move to the US, which my family probably weren't that happy about. Like, why is a severely depressed 19-year-old moving to another country? But I did it anyway. I think I was in the US probably for about less than a year, unmedicated and still struggling and still having these insane sleep issues and just being like in a very dark place and feeling completely hopeless. So it was when I went to my regular doctor just for like a normal pap, while she's like down there doing her thing, I was like, can I talk to you about something? And she's just like, right now. Anyway, for whatever reason, she was doing her thing in my vagina, and I felt comfortable finally being like, I've had some struggles and I'm still struggling. I told her all of my issues. She asked me some questions and she said, it sounds like you have cyclothymia. I'd never heard of it at that time. She wrote me a prescription for a different SSRI. I think it was Lexapro. I don't know if that's the US or the UK name. You know, told me to think about it. I didn't have to take the prescription, but if I did feel I wanted to, then this was how you should take it, etc. And so I came home, talked to Adam about it. We both read up on it and were like, this fits exactly. So I did start to take that medication. SSRIs have never taken very long to work for me. I think within 2 or 3 weeks I was feeling like a noticeable difference. Like I was able to get out of bed, I was able to talk about things and not just bawl my eyes out, and I felt like I had a little bit of hope for the first time, where I just felt completely like I'd given up for the longest time, and I just thought that that was how it was going to be. So I started to take that medication, and I think I was probably on that one for about a year, and I don't remember why I then switched, but it was just to a different antidepressant. I think I was on that for another year, and during that time I gained some weight. Again, I don't want to say I've ever had weight struggles, because I definitely haven't, but probably from the time where I was my skinniest in the UK to this point, I had gained like 45 pounds, which as a small person, you're still not like grossly overweight or like morbidly obese or anything, but you definitely don't feel yourself. Like you feel like, what is this body that has grown on me? This isn't mine. I struggled with that for a while. I was working out. I did also start to eat crap when I moved to America, so that was probably part of it, but I did try and make conscious lifestyle changes and nothing happened. My body still stayed the same. At that point, I had a new regular doctor. I still have him as a doctor, and he's the best doctor I've ever had. I went to him, told him what I was struggling with, and he was like, well, we could put you on something that doesn't make you gain weight. There's a good option. I had also realized during that time that although I felt better, it was verging on the feeling nothing end of the spectrum, because I'd realized that I hadn't like cried in a year, which is completely unheard of for me. Like, I'm a crier. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people cry. Anyway, I hadn't cried in like a year, and I was like, something just isn't quite right. Like, it's definitely an improvement on my like super depressed, completely given up self, but this wasn't right either. So he suggested that I try taking Wellbutrin, which is what I still take. I don't think it's recommended for anxiety, so I still do struggle with that, definitely. But anyway, he did warn me that the period of time in which you are kind of upping your dose of Wellbutrin and getting used to it can be really awful. So I tapered off the SSRI while kind of tapering onto the Wellbutrin. So there was an overlap, which should have in theory made things easier. That was a really hard like 4 to 6 weeks for me. I was having panic attacks, which I hadn't had in a long time. Like, I did definitely have them as a teen, but fairly frequently, but this was like extreme and out of nowhere and very physical. Like, I couldn't control my breathing. My chest muscles were like almost in spasm, so that doesn't help when you're hyperventilating already. So anyway, I persevered. Adam was obviously very good during that time and was like trying to help me through it, but probably was like, what have I got myself into? I think what it partly was my body getting used to the Wellbutrin, but also after having not felt anything for such a long period of time, everything comes rushing back to you. So I did look on some forums online. Everyone had said the same thing. Like, if you can get past the 6-week period when you first start taking the Wellbutrin, it's great. So I stuck to it, and it did start to even out. I was feeling good. I did still feel highs and lows, but they weren't as extreme. I was able to cry when it was appropriate to, but I also wasn't like crying for no reason. Things got a lot better for me when I started to take Wellbutrin. So over the next couple of years, everything was great, but I then did have some outside sources of stress in my life, like situational stress, which definitely did start to trigger some anxiety again. Like, I hadn't really had huge anxiety issues on the Wellbutrin, and I think a lot of that was because I wasn't anxious about the like rapid cycling and anticipating the highs and anticipating the lows. So I was much more stable, but once these difficult life events, I guess, were happening, my anxiety did come back. I did lose a ton more weight. I went back to the doctor and talked to him about it. I had told him the whole story. He knew what was happening in my life at that time, and he gave me, well, I call them PAMs because I can never remember which one is which. Ativan was one of them. All of the PAMs, like lorazepam, stuff like that, they are kind of, I think you're meant to take them kind of as and when, like they're not generally a daily drug. For some people they are, but they are kind of like for situational issues, like you take it when you need it. He did tell me that, you know, they don't like to give that to people long term, which I'm really glad, because that's a very easy thing to rely on. So he would give me very small prescriptions for it and make me, you know, check back in with him. And I did get some counselling at that time, which I do think helped, because I think just in any way talking about things and letting them out usually helps, but I don't think that the therapist that I had at that time was like we didn't mesh very well. One of my issues with that let's just talk about it all, shall we? One of my issues with that therapist was that she assumed that because I had tattoos that I had a very addictive personality, which I don't. I love moderation, and I'm almost controlling of being moderate, because for so long I had these insane highs and lows. Like being okay and in the middle ground is like my happy place. So she did bring that up a couple times, being like, well, aren't you addicted to tattoos? And I would be like, sorry, did I even bring that up? Was that relevant? Anyway, I didn't mesh with her for that reason, and although it was helpful, I don't think it was as helpful as it could have been. So I continued with the Ativan for a while. I never had like a ton of it in a prescription. I think the biggest prescription for them I ever had was for like 30 pills, and that lasted me like 3 or 4 months. Although my anxiety was very high at that time, and I was having some stressors that I couldn't really control, I wasn't taking them daily like I probably actually needed to, anxiety wise. So that was another different type of drug that I have tried for mental health. Again, definitely has its place, but I don't think it was right for me at that time. I then went to a different therapist who I loved. She's amazing. If you happen to live in the same town as me and you need a recommendation, I got you. So yeah, she was great. I felt like I had got a lot out of it. There were some appointments where I would cry the whole way through. There were some when I felt angry the whole way through. There was some when you cycle through every single emotion you've ever known in that like hour span of time with this stranger. But she was awesome. The stressors in my life kind of slowly figured themselves out, and I felt like I was kind of back on a okay, stable ground. So I was still taking the Wellbutrin. So it was okay for a while, and then I did experience some anxiety again, to the point where it was starting to affect my life. Like I wasn't able to just, you know, try and do yoga or stuff like that. People always suggest for mental health. Yoga has its place, but it's not going to fix someone's like huge mental health issues. And it can be kind of annoying when people recommend those things. So surprised no one's ever recommended coconut oil for mental health on the internet, honestly. So anyway, I went back to my doctor and I was like, I'm still having this anxiety that is starting to kind of control my life again. And, you know, after having a gap and realizing that things can be okay and moderate, I was starting to realize that I didn't just have to put up with things. And there was help there if I needed it. So he suggested that I try Buspar, which is buspirone, I think. So I started to take that, and it was amazing for my anxiety, but it gave me a very high heart rate. So that was a side effect that wasn't meant to happen. So he took me off of it. I did feel great while I had it. I felt like I didn't have this heavy stress on me, but I also had a very high heart rate, so I couldn't keep taking it, unfortunately. The other thing we tried in that time, and although Wellbutrin isn't generally recommended for anxiety that I'm aware of, I think it's definitely more depression, he said we could try, you know, bumping up your Wellbutrin. So I think currently I'm on 300 milligrams. So for this whole time I've been taking 300 milligrams of bupropion, Wellbutrin, and he said we could try and take up to 450. So that actually did work very well for me, and I did feel good. But again, I had some kind of physical reaction. So although I was feeling like the most stable and sort of happy and not anxious that I probably ever have, same with the Boost Bar, there were physical side effects that I couldn't, it wasn't advisable that I continue to take it. So with the Wellbutrin on the higher dose, I had this weird tingling sensation in my skin. I would feel like I had weird like numb areas. Sometimes I felt like I was having like brain zaps, which are another thing that people with mental health issues get to experience sometimes. It's the weirdest like phenomena to feel, but it almost, to me, it felt like my brain short-circuited for a second, and then I would have to wait for it to like reboot and get back to normal. Like it's almost like blacking out for a nanosecond. That's the only way I can think of to describe it. Anyway, because of those things, I had to go back to 300 milligrams, which is what I'm on now. I think the anxiety did start to dwindle down a little bit from life just improving and me trying really hard with lifestyle things to kind of relieve it. And that is where I still am at this point, taking Wellbutrin. Something people do ask is like, how do you know that you should still keep taking it? I have wondered that, and there have been times where I've stopped taking it and feel fucking awful. So that's how I know, basically. I also had asked my doctor about it, like, how do I come off it? And he's like, well, why do you want to come off it? And I was like, well, I thought I had to. And he had said, you know, like from how long he's known me, which at this point is a fairly long period of time, he's like, this is the thing that's worked best for you. So if you have to keep taking it, you have to keep taking it. So at this point I have tried, I think, 4 different types of medication for my various issues. I've done the SSRIs, I've done the PAMs, the atypical antidepressants, which is the Wellbutrin, and then I don't really know where Boost Bar falls, but so 3 or 4 different types, and the atypical ones are the ones I've had the most luck with. So not luck, chemical relief. If you have mental health problems, you'll know that a lot of the times people will be like, well, why don't you go for a walk? Or why don't you do some yoga? Or, you know, try having lemon water in the mornings. You'll get all of these different lifestyle suggestions from people, and they definitely do mean well, but sometimes when you've already tried what feels like everything and you've struggled with medications, those suggestions can get old really fast. So I think what's important is that you do try many different things. You find the things that work for you. I've got some really weird coping mechanisms, so you do just have to give everything a go until you find something that gives you some relief. I do think that definitely eating healthy, having good fats in your diet is good for brain health in general. Make sure that your overall lifestyle is as healthy as possible, and it will really help. Any medication or anything you're doing will work better the healthier you are. So I definitely do think that being active, getting your endorphins going, and being healthy is a huge help. I also think it can be a really big struggle when you are feeling like shit to want to eat healthy or to even eat sometimes. There are definite lifestyle things that can help. So for me, it is to move my body, eat healthy. There are things like cooking that really helps me. That's my time where I shut off and I feel like I can create and like be in the zone and I don't think about anything else. I also do some visualization things. This is a really weird one. I have this thing where I love the feeling of pumpkin flesh. So if ever I'm feeling anxious or I need a distraction, I will close my eyes and imagine that I'm feeling pumpkin flesh in my fingers. It's the weirdest thing, but you have to find what works for you. You can't just rely on medication, and I think that is where a lot of people's frustration comes from, is that they think, I've tried all of these things and now I've tried medication and that's not working either. Well, you have to do it all. Like you have to take as much responsibility for your recovery even, for your improvement as the medication does. So you need to be trying really hard still, as well as taking the medication. Even small things, like make yourself a list of like 3 things that you need to get done. Checking things off a list feels really good, and they might be very minuscule tasks that don't really count for anything, but feeling like you've managed to accomplish something when you've just spent like a week in bed unable to move because you are so depressed, accomplishing things feels good. So you have to figure out what your coping mechanisms are, and you have to actively try. So like I said, exercise, healthy eating, imagining pumpkin flesh. There are so many weird different things that you can try. You can try yoga, different breathing techniques. There are several different apps that you can use that can make mental health like a game, like it makes it fun almost. So the lifestyle is as important as the medication for sure. Trying to just keep a routine, like that is hard and it can seem boring sometimes, but a routine really helps. And when you have had like crazy highs and lows and rapid cycling, you feel like everything is so out of control. But once you take a look at what's happening, and you can even like chart your crazy mood swings if you want, it's very predictable. So once you start to like look at your lifestyle, look at your symptoms, look at the things that help you, you can predict all of it. Like you can be ahead of your mental illness, and it's a really good feeling because that's probably the best it's going to get. You might not ever not have that mental health problem, but to feel like you have conquered it almost, like you're just co-living with it, it feels good. Like that might be the best it's going to be, and that's okay because you might never get rid of your mental health problems, but to be able to live with them and succeed and be like a productive member of society feels good. And you should feel good about that. Like the days that you manage, you should feel great. And even if you've only just managed to get out of bed, that is an achievement when you feel like shit. Your lifestyle and your outlook on mental health will help you greatly, and talking about it. Chances are one of your friends or family members is also just as crazy as you, so find that person and talk to them about it if it makes you feel better. And I don't mean to offend anyone by using the term crazy, but that's how I cope with things, is to make jokes out of them and to call myself crazy. So I'm not saying that if you have mental health problems you're crazy, that's just how I refer to myself. And a lot of my friends and family who also have mental health problems also do the same and joke. So if that's offensive to you, I am really sorry. Yeah, you just got to try everything until you find something that works, and then the days where you feel like giving up, just do one small thing that you don't want to do, like get up and wash your hair, or get up and make yourself some food and take a shower. You know, those basic little things you have to keep trying, and you have to be accountable. Like you can't control your mental illness per se, but you have to try and control the way that you deal with it. And it's not easy. It's not going to like happen in a day. You're probably going to struggle with it for a long time. But that's the reason I think that it's important to talk about it. Like if you feel able to, make a video like this and talk about your issues and just put it out there that you also struggle. I think it's really important, because the only coverage of mental health, or the only stories we hear about mental health, can't keep being about people who are already dead. Which brings us on to suicide. So when you go to a doctor for any mental health problems, they generally make you fill out, I think it's like a 9-question form, and you rate if you're feeling anxious, or if you're feeling like you're not worthy, or if you're feeling suicidal. You have to note that on this form generally. And although I have never tried to kill myself, and I've never thought about actually taking my life, I have very much wanted to not be inside of my own head. And I think that there is a very fine line between that and between thinking of actually taking your own life. So although I have never been technically suicidal, I can imagine how that feels, just because of how strongly I've not wanted to be a part of my own world anymore. So anyway, that's why I think it's important that we all talk about things if we feel able to, because When you feel that depressed and the only things you see about mental health are awful and about people killing themselves, there's only so much you can hear that when you feel that way before you start thinking that that is your only option, and it's not. I think that's why this video has been like an emotional thing that I've put off for a while, because although I am doing great now and I never thought that I would be here, it's really hard to look back and think about how bad things were and how close you might have been to, you know, doing something awful. And so now when I'm aware of like my peers taking their own lives because they were so hopeless, it like really gets to me, and I feel like I just wish I could have done something. Like, I know that sometimes you're so down that no matter how many times people tell you that it's gonna pass and you're gonna get through it, I wish that I could tell everybody who has ever felt like that or who currently feels like that it really can get better, and you just have to keep that tiny bit of hope, like no matter how hard it is. This is why I don't wear eyelashes today. You have to keep some hope, even if it's a really small thing, like plan a trip in your future, even though you know that right now you don't want to do it. Make sure there are things for you to look forward to no matter how shit your life is at that moment. Do something small for yourself and have that thing to look forward to. It doesn't have to cost a ton of money. It doesn't have to cost anything. It could be the smallest thing that you enjoy, and you need to ask for help. Like, I know for me at least, I spent a lot of time wishing that someone would take me out of my depression and fix it for me, and that's not going to happen. You have to ask for help, and there are so many impersonal, I don't know if that's the right word, ways of getting help now. Like, there are text lines, you can get help online, there are apps that you can get, like there are so many options that you have to at least try. Just do something small for yourself to make a positive change, and it's going to be different for everyone. Like, not everyone's story is going to be the same. I will also put links below to places that you can get help. So if you are right now feeling suicidal, please just like reach out to someone in your life, or use one of the hotlines, or use the text line, or do something, because your life is so precious and it feels awful right now, but I promise you that it can get so much better, because I never thought that I could feel this okay. Because feeling okay is really great. So I guess now I've got all that out of the way, brings me to the now. I'm still taking Wellbutrin, I'm still eating healthy, I'm still trying really hard to keep a routine, which I know is good for me because it means that you can almost predict the future. And it makes you feel like you have control. Like when you manage to keep a routine, you feel like, fuck yeah, I got it down, you know? Like, it's the smallest thing, but it makes you feel so much better. I do still have highs and lows because I am probably technically under-medicated for my personal situation, but I haven't found anything that makes up that kind of deficit. I can't go on a higher dose of medications, I can't take this certain medication for this reason, and so I do still have highs and lows that I do struggle with. I think having a very understanding family about mental health is huge, and I know not everyone has that, and I can't even imagine how much of a struggle that must be. So that is definitely, you know, one thing that's really helped me is being able to talk about it with people that I love and who love me. And there is other help out there, like I said. If you don't have that family or, you know, friendships with people that you can connect about this with, there is still help. So, you know, if I am having a really down day, or, you know, I'm on a low, I might talk to my mum on the phone, I might talk to Adam, and what always helps me is to just fucking laugh at myself, because it is crazy the stuff that your body puts you through, and that is what it is. It's a chemical imbalance, you can't help it, and sometimes it makes you behave very strangely. So I will usually talk to Adam or my mum, and we will make a joke out of it, because it's funny sometimes. It's funny how weird you can act because of a mental health issue. It's also really not funny at all, but if I don't joke about it, I'm gonna cry, and I just have cried enough. Yeah, always making light of the situation helps me, laughing at it. it feels good to joke sometimes. Which I guess brings me into the future and what that brings. Fuck, when you're depressed, the future is the last thing that you want to think about, but when you actually are able to, it feels so good. As far as what my mental health struggles might bring in the future, I don't know, but all I can do is continue to assess and adjust my situation. Maybe I might need to work out more. Maybe I might need to go and have therapy again. I don't know what it's going to bring, but all I can do is try and stay on top of it and be very self-aware and be open to, like, Adam, for example, being like, you seem a little bit different. And just continuing to fight the good fight. As far as medication, I'm going to continue to take it for as long as I need to. I know there is a lot of like shaming out there for people who seek help in medical ways because they're like, well, I was depressed once and I just went for a run. We're not all that lucky. We can't all just go for a run and feel better. So I'm going to continue to take medication as long as I need to. If Adam and I decided that we wanted to have kids, you can't or you shouldn't really take Wellbutrin while pregnant unless the benefit it's going to give you outweighs the chance of any kind of birth defects, maybe, or ways that it could affect your unborn child. So that would be something I would have to assess and change, and maybe it would be a really hard struggle for a while, but you know, we'll see what the future brings. So yeah, it's always gonna be with me. It's always gonna be something that I have to work on and try things and just not be afraid of laughing at myself or how insane I might behave sometimes. I think part of the reason why I hadn't done this sooner is because I already am quite open about it. Me being open about it already and being raised in a home that is very open about talking about mental health, I didn't know that it was necessarily important for me to make this video, but I knew I wanted to because you guys had asked, and also in the little town that we've been in, there have been like 3 or 4 suicides lately of young people. I think I only actually knew one of them, but that'll really fucking get to you. Like, that's why I think it's so important that if you have overcome mental health issues, it's just as important for you to share your story as it is for if you are currently in it. Do you see a therapist? If so, do you think it has helped in any specific ways?